Happy New Year! Live from more or less from Las Vegas with Mark Anthony. I'm Rick Rose, and this is Good Sports, our New Year's Day edition. What's
New
up, Mark?
Year's Day.
New Year. Same old crap. I mean, yeah, same day. You know, they make a big deal out of New Year. It's a calendar thing. Man being the only species that keeps track of time, unless you count bears that hibernate. You know, I mean, it's much ado about none. It's one day to the next, 1 minute to the next. You know, I mean, all those things, you break it down. But 300,000 people had a hell of a party last night on the Las Vegas Strip. Another 40,000 downtown. Fremont Street experience. Nothing but a few drunks that got to see what the inside of the Clark County Detention Center was like. But other than that, safe. Most all across the world, very safe and cool, except for Dubai. Did you see that? They had the huge, big ass skyscraper was burning, and they said, "Oh, we don't want to let that bother our fireworks show." So at the 20th story, that maybe went up like a candle.
Early.
But there was some guy hanging from the balcony. Literally, it come out and was dangling 20 stories up, and the fireworks were going off at the same frickin' time. It's like, well, which do we look at? The guy about to fall to his death, or the really neat fireworks? So they celebrate differently in Dubai. Mark, I suppose we probably need to get right to it. A couple things. We have a list longer than my arm of people who passed away. Well, it's long enough. This is not even 3 months worth of people that passed away, sports personalities that passed away in 2015. Not the least of which was Jerry Tarkanian, longtime UNLV coach, Tark the Shark. And if time allows, we will go through the list name by name. But man, there's some hellacious names on there. And the month of December was just torture on basketball. I mean, I think I marked those down. Guy Lewis, who was the coach of Phi Slamma Jamma at Houston and had Akeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler, he died. Let me see. That might have been like late November. Anyway, Jim Loskatoff from the Celtics, he had his name retired, not his number, but his name. They were running out of jerseys, so they retired the guy's name instead of his jersey. Dolph Schayes was a 12-time All-Star, coach of the Syracuse Nats, played with the Syracuse Nats, one of the 50th greatest basketball players. Died on the 10th of December. John Hot Rod Williams played with the Cavaliers and a couple other teams. 53 years old, died of prostate cancer. And Meadowlark Lemon,
Meadowlark,
the most talented basketball players ever. I mean, to be able to do the things that Meadowlark Lemon does or did on a basketball court, and also be hilarious and do all those things. But what a tremendous basketball player Meadowlark Lemon was. No question that he had the talent to play in the NBA had he wanted to take that. And the Harlem Globetrotters used to be in the NBA. Did you realize that?
No.
They started out as a legitimate team, and they didn't have a place to play, and they started the barnstorming thing, and one thing led to another, and they became the Clown Princes, and there was no bigger of a Clown Prince than Meadowlark Lemon. But December was tough on basketball alone, and some I mean there were some big names, and a couple of them died just yesterday or the day before. Howard Davis Jr., one of our Olympic boxers, in 1976, won the gold medal in 76, and I believe it was shortly after his mother had died. And Doug Atkins, one of the meanest SOBs to ever play pro football, played with the Bears. He was one of the monsters of the Midway, played with Dick Butkus and Gale Sayers there, and some, I mean, the way football used to be played, the guy wouldn't last half of the first couple minutes, the way he played and hit people. But anyway,
can I stop you there, Rick?
Sure.
Okay. This year we lost those guys, Dick Butkus and all of those guys. Okay.
Well, we didn't lose Dick Butkus yet. He's still with us.
Okay. The one married to the bimbo that
Frank Gifford.
Yeah, him.
Frank Gifford. Yep. Concussion.
Back back, that's back when we had football, and these guys had names. The refrigerator.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do
Lou the
you
Toad
think we're
Groza.
ever gonna? Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like that. That was part of the fun
Appeal.
of football was
Yeah.
because you went to see these characters.
Well, look, the Galloping Ghost, Red Grange. I mean, they had those great nicknames, and now all the good nicknames are taken. I mean, now they don't have squad for Johnny Football. Yeah, all right.
Are we ever going to
I
see
think one of
that?
the most appropriate things I heard was Johnny College Football. I don't think so, Mark. It's so commercialized. It's like Christmas and everything else. I mean, everything's so instant. Guys name themselves names. They don't just pick this up. Grantland Rice is the guy that named people. The writers used to give them names because they were explaining. They had to draw a picture that you could see in your mind, and we don't have that anymore, Mark. Everything is so visual. You get to actually see the guys, and from every damned angle there possibly is. They've taken the mystique out of it. It's almost like knowing how magicians do the tricks. Okay, it's just not near as much fun for most people. But no, you're right. I don't think we will ever see the football be the same again. Some of it has to do with health, Mark. There's plenty of guys that have died giving their lives to play that game that entertains us and doesn't have much other redeeming qualities. I guess good. It's supposed to be good health, but they certainly don't get that when they. And the movie Concussion that came out this last week, Mark,
Right.
has a lot to. I think that says a lot about where we're at. And man, I don't know if you could be in a better position to know that the changes are coming, Mark. And Dr. Sicking down at Alabama Birmingham is working on helmets and ways to save people's lives by simply not having them get concussions. And it's a coming. But no, you're right, Mark. That changes. I don't think we will ever get anything near like that again, unless they destroy the internet and take away TVs. And it was really funny. I was waiting for the bus yesterday, Mark. I went to go pick up a 12-pack and stayed here and partied last night. I did. You don't get DUIs in your front room. And one of the ladies that lives here. We were 5 minutes before the bus got here, and so we were talking at the bus stop. We were actually standing in the sunshine near the bus stop because it's not, even though it's Vegas and this is the desert, it wasn't that damn warm yesterday, and so
crazy.
she kind of made me laugh. Yeah, there's a correlation here. The lady said I mentioned something about TV, and she said, "Oh, because of my beliefs, I don't have a TV." I said, "Oh," and before I could say "oh" and then something else, she said, "I have a computer." And I'm thinking, okay, that probably explains a hell of a lot more than most anybody ever could ask. But I don't think you would ever ask that question. But I guess that's where we're at, Mark. People don't have TVs anymore, but they're okay with computers. So I think it's, I don't think there's a huge amount of good that comes out of television. It could be, but it's not used for that. But I can't imagine what religion says. Not TVs are bad, but computers are okay. But anyway, that's where we went. So, all right, Mark, here's this. And a lot of this stuff is from the computer, by the way. But another guy, a notable death. Does the name Emmanuel Yarborough ring a bell to you?
Yarborough does.
Emmanuel Yarborough was the Guinness Book of World Records world's largest living athlete at well over 600 pounds. He fought in the third UFC event, and it was not numbered like UFC 3 or 9 or whatever it is. He fought in the third UFC event. I believe he fought a man named Kenny Hackney, and Yarborough passed away on the 21st. A relatively young man, but over 600 pounds, and got in the fight. But man, what a if you look at baseball, two of the most iconic figures in baseball passed away too, Mark, with Ernie Banks and Yogi Berra.
Oh man,
there's and Dave Henderson, a guy who hit a couple of the most dramatic home runs in baseball history, passed away also. But basketball, man, Meadowlark Lemon, Mel Daniels, who's a 3-time ABA champion, 2-time MVP, Hall of Famer, played with the Indiana Pacers and was the man, only 6'9", And he went Flip Saunders, who coached your Minnesota Thunderwolves, amongst others,
Yeah.
Pistons and the Wizards. 17 seasons. Flip Saunders doesn't get a hell of a lot of credit, but I mean, those teams are not known. Well, I guess the Pistons maybe, but those teams are not known as winning franchises by any stretch of the imagination over the long haul. And he was 654 and 592 with the Thunderwolves, the Pistons, and the Wizards. So you're 60 some odd games over 500. You've done. What is it, 62 games? Yeah, over 500. You've done a pretty darn good job in the NBA, particularly with those kind of teams. So,
well, that's what's funny about sports, because people look at it and go, oh, he's not that winning of a coach, or a player even. I mean, but it's like we've talked before, like with A-Rod. I mean, the guy hits what, less than half of the pitches that are thrown at him, and he's still, it's not that easy to get over the 500 mark. You would think.
Oh, and wins. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, in any sport, because the other guys are getting paid too, right. And so talent is they've made with the draft and free agency has skewed that some, but they've tried to level the playing field so everybody has a reasonable amount of talent, so that when you go to a game, you see a competitive game. Now, there are guys like Jerry Jones and George Steinbrenner come to mind. That put together they buy their way towards this magnificent team, and it still doesn't. I guess the Yankees had some success doing that, and the Cowboys for a while, but it has been a while. And also one more guy though, I think the Milwaukee Bucks, Dave Myers, who was a hell of a player at UCLA. Ann Myers was his sister. Him and Reggie Miller, they both have sisters that were probably better basketball players than they were. Dave Myers passed away. He was only 62 years old, and he played. He led them very much to John Wooden's last national championship at UCLA in 1975. So, God bless them all. We're going to miss them. Like I say, you just can't. You run down this list, Mark. I'm gonna go real quickly. We can't do this. Howard Davis Jr., Doug Atkins. He won the national title in 1951 at Tennessee, much like Reggie White came out of Tennessee. Frank Malzone, Major League Baseball, Red Sox, All-Star third baseman. Dave Henderson, as I said, Emmanuel Yarbrough, Glenn Sonmore, who had been the coach of the Minnesota North Stars, Mark, he passed away. Hot Rod Williams, Arnold Peralta. He was a Honduran national soccer player. He was shot 18 times, and they're not exactly sure why, but evidently they wanted to make sure he was dead, so they shot him 18 times. Dal Shays, Jim Loskatoff, Guy Lewis. Guy Lewis had 27 consecutive winning seasons. The coach at Houston, college coach. Oh, okay. O'Neill Bell was shot in a robbery. He had been the former WBA, WBC, and IBF cruiserweight title holder, 27-4-1. Speaking of guys that were not heavyweights but were great, Bob Foster. Light heavyweight. He fought both Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier because he'd beaten up everybody so just throttled him as a light heavyweight. He was a deputy sheriff in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Bob Foster, one of the greatest fighters ever. He gave Ali everything he could handle in a fight, and he passed away. Mal Whitfield, a former Tuskegee Airman, fought 27 Korean War combat missions, won 3 gold medals, 2 different Olympics. He won 2 and then 1. Tommy Hansen from the Braves, man, a young man, 29 years old, went into a coma and then had catastrophic organ failure and died. Eric Allen, running back from Michigan State, I think he was like 66. He went for 350 yards on the ground against Purdue and ended up mostly playing in the Canadian Football League. Had a couple of cups of coffee in the NFL, but nothing to write home and tell mom about. Jimmy Roberts was a 5-time Stanley Cup champion with Montreal. He passed away. And Dean Chance, the youngest Cy Young Award winner until Dwight Gooden came along at 20. Dean Chance was 23 years of age, went 20-9, had a 1.65 earned run average, and he passed away. And if you remember back with the Angels, it was Dean Chance and Bo Belinsky, and Bo Belinsky is the guy that was married to Jane Mansfield. What a great interview I did with Bo Belinsky, and he was talking about Dean Chance and how awesome it was to see another football guy, Lindy Infante, died, and Yogi Berra, and last but not least, through September, Al Casale from the Raiders. I mean, he and Al Davis. Al Davis was the guy that was always out with the pompadour hairdo and the scowl and the smile and the just win baby. But Al Casale was the huge historian who had a lot to do with the American Football League and the National Football League merging to become what we now know as the NFL. And, so we're going to miss all of them. We'll have to finish up that list next week, Mark, because we don't have enough time in an hour to go through all the people that have passed away. And then you go to those that died sporting wise, and they're still with us on earth. You're talking about Kobe Bryant, Tiger Woods, and Jeff Gordon. Kobe Bryant announced his retirement. He's in his final few games. Tiger Woods, we may never see him again after the multiple back surgeries and all the nonsense and the wife things and the divorce and all the stuff. I don't know. They kind of ruined Tiger Woods. Guy likes oral sex. Next thing you know, he can't win another major. And Jeff Gordon. Almost went out, almost Elwayed his way out of NASCAR. He made the last four, and in that same vein, it was a huge. I don't know if I've ever seen a better comeback story, Mark, than Kyle Busch breaking his legs on Saturday, the day before the Daytona 500, missing 11 races, having to race his way in, and NASCAR gave him a little bit of a break, but nothing spectacular.
No.
And Kyle Busch made the top 30 and won some races and got into the chase, and damned if he didn't win the whole thing. I think probably the biggest story, Mark, at least in my opinion, American Pharoah winning the Triple Crown after a 37-year break. It's been a long, long time since Seattle Slew. And we had Affirmed and Seattle Slew and Secretariat all I think in the 70s in that one decade. And then it was till now that American Pharoah won the Triple Crown and did it very convincingly, and then won the Breeders' Cup to back it up. And now he gets to go mate. Yeah. That's a hell of a retirement plan. They must have a much better union than I guess some pro athletes. Wilt Chamberlain was pretty famous for mating, and so maybe we'll give an award away. What do you think was the biggest story, Mark?
What was the biggest story, or what was the one that I liked the best?
Well, to you, yeah. I mean, it's
the sports stories for me were more of the person, okay, my biggest one for 2015 was the fact that Las Vegas played such an important role in the World Series with the Area 51 was basically the Mets.
And three of the four teams that made the semifinals, three of the four teams that played for their league championship had Las Vegas connections, certainly very strong. The only one that didn't was Kansas City, who won it all. But we'd been the farm team for the Toronto Blue Jays. They picked up David Price and Troy Tulowitzki halfway through the season and just caught fire and ran everybody into the ground. They were like 6.5 games out when they made the trade and ended up winning their division by 7 games. So that's a huge turnaround halfway through the season. And the Cubs with Chris Bryant are the local kid done good, rookie of the year for the Cubs, and they made certainly a great resurgence. And then Bryce Harper from the Nationals is the only one that didn't actually make the playoffs, and they were kind of favored to win the World Series, but he's the MVP of the National League. But yeah, between the Mets and the Cubs and the Blue Jays, we saw a hell of a lot of guys that played either in the World Series or for the right to play in the World Series here in Las Vegas over the last 3 years.
And then when Tark died, the number of professional athletes that paid him homage was,
oh man,
so we had that, and then we end the year with Kyle Busch winning the Sprint Cup, Mr. Bad Boy, Mr. Bad Boy, who everyone booed, turns around holding up the cup going, nee. I'm like, yeah.
All it took was Brad Keselowski to call him an ass, and they traded places. Keselowski was like the golden boy, and, he took the microphone and for no particularly discernible reason, said Kyle Busch is an ass, and kind of took the heat off. He might be, but where the hell does it be your job to say it in front of God and everybody in a very inappropriate time? And Brad Keselowski, not a terribly bad guy. Neither is Joey Logano, but both of them, man. When Logano wrecked Matt Kenseth, and Matt Kenseth then came back and wrecked Joey Logano and took him out of the chase, and Kenseth got the last 2 games. Logano could have been the victim in all that, and he didn't take the high road. He could have come out smelling pretty good, and Matt Kenseth's not a bad guy, so it wasn't like it was, if you look back, it wasn't like Dale Earnhardt and the Intimidator and Joey Logano were having at it. It was a good guy like Matt Kenseth, who's a pretty straight shooting arrow. And when we at Champions Week, Mark, I had the opportunity to ask one of the drivers, and he'll remain nameless. And I said, "How did you? He didn't do anything." I said, "Logano didn't really do anything that anybody else hasn't done." I said, certainly Dale Earnhardt was pretty good about spinning people into the wall if they were in his way. And I said, I know he did that to Terry Labonte. And he said, yeah, but it's what he did after. It's how he carried himself after that had the deal. And there were several drivers, most all of the drivers literally ostracized Joey Logano at Champions Week here, and this one particular driver just turned his back on him as opposed to looking at him. And I don't think that story's over either. But we're a month and a half away now from the Daytona 500, Mark. I'm gonna run these down, and you tell me when to stop. We talked about Kobe and Tiger and Gordon. Maybe not. At least 2 of the 3 are done. American Pharoah, the Super Bowl call, one of the worst calls ever in any football game, from Bantam League, Pee Wee, high school. I don't care. Pete Carroll, as my friend Bill Miller, he said, beady-eyed little bastard. And then he says bad things about him. But one of the stupidest calls ever in a Super Bowl. Nobody was stopping. The Patriots certainly had no shot at stopping Marshawn Lynch for a 1.5 yard, 2 yard deal, and they threw the ball and picked off, and that cost them that. And that was kind of that was overshadowed by Deflategate, one of the stupidest things I've ever heard of, and where the NFL has done everything humanly possible to make the offense better, so that people are more interested. Nobody wants to go see a 3-0 game. Everybody wants to see something that's 48-47, and somebody tries a 2-point conversion to win the game or something. And so they've skewed everything so heavily towards the offense. And then they find out, okay, they say, well, each team is in charge of their own balls. All right. So it seems simple to say everybody plays with the same damn ball. Then it doesn't matter what it is. Nobody has an advantage. But they said both teams have their own balls, and you're responsible for your team and your team, but they can't be different. Well, then why? Let's make sense out of this. Let's use logic. Why have 2 different? Let the referees have the balls, and screw you. Here's the ball. Play with it. It's not like basketball. The other team has the ball. Throw them their ball, and nobody else does that. Baseball, they use the same balls, on and on and on. And in football, they said, well, we're going to let you have your own balls, but can't vary them. And if they have a way, if they know that there's a way that makes football a better game, why don't they embrace it? Let both teams, let the quarterbacks, Phil, if you want to throw a Frisbee out there, if you want to take all the air out of the ball and throw it around like that, okay. I don't see what the problem is. But anyway, this is not over. Deflategate, the NFL has appealed the decision that came down from the judge to allow Tom Brady to play this entire year. They wanted to suspend him for 4 games, which is more than Roger Goodell wanted to spend Ray Rice for KO and his wife in the elevator. So I think it's much ado about nothing. And what do you think? You're not a huge Patriots fan by any stretch of the imagination, Mark.
No, but
don't you? Do you find the common sense of what I'm saying about if you're making all the rules to make the offense better, and if you just take a couple of pounds of air out of the ball, it'd work better. Why don't they do it? Why is that something that sounds bad?
Because they're trying to get away to sorry about this for being our first show of the new year, but it's kind of like politics. Look over there. Don't
Crap.
Don't look at the fact that we're no longer funding the concussion survey study and that we only put $1 billion into the fund and all that. But look at this fact that we don't have balls with air in it. Oh, come on, guys.
Somebody took some out.
Yeah. But it's like you said, you guys set the rules up. They played by the rules, and now you're pissy because they played by your rules. And then and then we go back to the game that this all was around. The other team lost by a bazillion points.
The Indianapolis Colts, 45-3, I think, was the final in the game, something like that. Okay. I think that could be the stupidest thing. You go on down the list. The Warriors and their NBA title last year. It came out of the blue, and then had that great run. The Cleveland Cavaliers were ready to face them, and they only had half a team going into the NBA Finals. They had LeBron James, which is a pretty good half, but
that's half.
Basically all they had. They had Andrew Dellavedova, and there was Kyrie Irving was hurt, and Dellavedova played, the kid from Australia that kind of came out of nowhere, like Jeremy Lin had done a few years before, and made his mark. But the Warriors made the run there and then started this year. Was it 27-0, 25-0, something like that, Mark? They set the record for to start the game and start the season. Wow. And Steph Curry won the MVP, and now they've lost a couple. He sat out a game. They lost one, and then he sat out with a leg injury, and they lost that pretty bad. And Klay Thompson did not step up, but they've started it again. Speaking of winning streaks, the University of Kentucky, coached by our friend John Calipari, had this winning streak, and they had 7 or 8 first-round draft picks on the roster, and they got their streak snapped by Wisconsin in the semis. And it just they talked about them like they used to about when Larry Johnson and Stacey Augmon and Greg Anthony played at UNLV in Tark's years when they won the national championship, and then the next year they were undefeated going into the semis, and Bobby Hurley and Duke beat them, the team that they had killed the year before in the finals by 30-some points, beat them in the semis to stop their winning streak. They thought they could have beaten some NBA teams. I don't subscribe to that theory, but then along comes Kentucky, and they got knocked off. And like I say, they had 7 or 8 first-round draft picks on that roster. So on any given day, I guess any team that's in that tournament can beat any other team. But I thought that was big. And of course, like I said, Chris Bryant being the Rookie of the Year in the National League, Bryce Harper being the most valuable player. They played against each other in high school. That speaks highly of baseball here in Las Vegas. And kind of a sad note along that way, the man that coached Bryce Harper at College of Southern Nevada, Tim Chambers, moved to UNLV and had some problems, had some injuries. I think he had a back problem and this and that, and got a DUI and finally had to step down. And, he's a hell of a coach. I used to do some announcing when I first made it back to town here for Tim Chambers when he was out at College of Southern Nevada. And, he's a hell of a coach, and we wish him well. But, just kind of a sad note to those to that connection. It was a really, really good year for Vegas baseball, kind of with that one rare exception. One of my favorite stories, Mark, J.B. Mooney winning his second Pro Bull Riders Championship and taking it right to everybody. J.B. Mooney did not take a day off. He rode tough bulls when he didn't have to ride tough bulls. All he had to do was qualify. All he had to do was get on. And he said, well, screw that. I'm going to get on whatever's out there. And so this is a guy who chose airtime on purpose. And when Bushwhacker was around, J.B. Mooney chose Bushwhacker whenever he could. If somebody didn't take Bushwhacker before him, he did. And just put the heat right to everybody else who said, well, we have to now ride the very best bulls. I can't take a day off either. And J.B. Mooney won his second championship, and I don't believe it'll be his last championship, Mark, and I don't think you do either. Health had a lot to do with it. or I think he would have had some others. But I think that kind of goes with that territory in the Pro Bull Riders. And you did the National Finals rodeo, Mark. Was there anything outstanding that happened there on the dirt at the Thomas and Mack?
Yes and no. With the NFR, with the people behind it, the PRCA, Pro Rodeo Cowboys Association, they're in the middle of the drama with the upstart ERA, and everyone was and with the new rules kicking in today, about half to 2/3 of the participants who are at the NFR this year will not qualify for next year. And so the ERA sued the PRCA and all that. So everyone was kind of waiting to hear what the players were going to say versus what the PRCA was going to say. And I got to say this, everyone kept it classy. And that is the one thing.
The rodeo guys, they're supposed to do that.
Yes, yeah, and that's what everyone kind of commented on, is that in any other sport there would have been trash talking, and everyone said, I'm here for the NFR. That's it, and that's what their focus was, and so there wasn't any real drama, and I got to say that was the best part of it all. But there really wasn't any upsets. There wasn't anything that went boom. Here it is. What it was, though, was we didn't have a continuous win every night. We didn't have the same winners like we've had in previous rounds, where by the second night we pretty much know who's getting all of the trophies and everything.
It was cut and dried pretty much, before the end of the event.
Yeah, and it was really fun because you got these rookies, and it's so fun to interview the rookies versus the guys who've been here 20 years, and because the rookies are all like, wow,
wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. Yep.
You're asking me a question? Oh God, that's gonna be fun. So yeah, there wasn't any big major things, and that's what made it nice. So I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Yeah, it did. And here's my thoughts on the PRCA and their split with the ERA. When the Pro Bull Riders moved away and split from the PRCA, it was because they were bringing in the crowd. They were the stars, and so they moved on and they have their thing and they proved right. Ty Murray and all the everybody else there that moved, and the old timers, Cody Lambert and Cody Custer and the 8 guys that threw $1,000 in a piece and started the PBR. They didn't. The bull riding still went on at the PRCA. It was one event. With this ERA, it's the whole shooting match. Everybody, top to bottom, left to right, has an opportunity to go do with the new guys what now the PRCA seems to have eliminated them from doing again. It almost comes to me, Mark, like when IndyCar racing, which was losing ground to NASCAR, and all of a sudden they got into a pissing contest amongst their owners, and Roger Penske and they started CART, Championship Auto Racing teams. And when they broke from Indy racing, man, it was the dagger in the back, and they have never recovered. And I think you may see that with the PRCA and the ERA. I mean, I don't think it's a big enough audience that they can handle both. And just because you were a star in the PRCA, it doesn't mean you're going to have carryover to the ERA, Mark. I don't see it. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't see it. I think they could really have.
Part of the issue is that the PRCA wants to control the event. Okay.
Yeah.
And they want to run it like the NFL and the NBA. Okay. Which is two completely different. It's apples to oranges, okay? And one of the things that came out of the media room from all of this. Like on the third day, we have the press conference with the chairman of the board, the CEO Kesselman. Okay, and the new rules say that if you play in the ERA, you can't play in the PRCA, and you can't, and you cannot have your event right after a PRCA event in a arena that the PRCA was in. And the arena owners went, excuse me, we own the arena, you don't.
Yeah, that's our call, not yours.
Yeah. And it's like,
take your opinion into account. Yeah. It ain't happening.
So it's like, okay, if you want to run it like the NFL, own the teams and own the arenas.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where things are getting rubbed raws, because the PRCA is trying to say, is trying to run everything, but they don't own everything.
It's a power play, and I think they've lost. But we'll see. And speaking of owning the arenas and all this, and you mentioned the NFL, here we are, 20 years. Los Angeles, our second largest city, has not had a pro football team. Now there's 3 teams wanting to go there because they don't have coliseums. I mean, the Oakland Coliseum is terrible, and the Raiders moved to LA once before because of the Coliseum issues, and so they redid the Oakland Alameda Coliseum, and now it's that's been 20 years, and now it sucks again, and so they're going to move back to LA. All things considered, the San Diego Chargers are almost certainly going to move somewhere, and I think the St. Louis Rams, and they had a deadline. They had a line drawn in the sand for them to come to them with to the NFL with a proposal or for a stadium, and here's this and that, and they beat it by like 1 day to get their proposal in and all that before it was a done deal. So I think Los Angeles is going to have at least one. And they've got 3 teams wanting in, so somebody's going to have to. I don't think they can handle 3 pro teams, but they're going to have 2 teams. St. Louis is not going to have a team. San Diego is not going to have a team, even though that's only 100 miles up the road. If you really are a sports fan, and a lot of people from my hometown in Colorado go the 100 miles up the road to see the Broncos play, so that's not that big of a thing. The St. Louis Rams. Who's closest around there? The Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And I mean, you're not real close to any other pro teams that you would envelop. So I don't know what's going to happen with football, but they seem to just keep rolling along regardless of the. But I think one of the least effective leaders anymore is the Roger Goodell shipman. Chairman of the commissioner of the NFL, and Goodell again. He's an attorney who comes in, and you're right, Mark. He doesn't run it like you would think. Common sense would tell you when somebody knocks his girlfriend now unconscious in a elevator, and then leaves her. And Ray Rice was saying the other day how terrible he felt after he saw that he just left her there, and then he went back and just kind of pulled her along like she was the empty trash bag he'd kind of forgotten by the door when he went to throw it out. So I'm not a big fan of Roger Goodell's. I think I'm very surprised that he has lasted this long, and I don't think the NFL, as awesome as they are in their business, is huge, can afford to have a whole lot more of screw-ups by Roger Goodell. I think he will find a way out. Other guys that found their way out in the leadership position of great football things is Sepp Blatter from the FIFA, people who control the World Cup soccer. And all the money, the massive scandal it's not like nobody knew what that money was going for. If you want the World Cup to come to your country, you best come up with some big time money. And they were just stealing. I mean, they weren't even really good at hiding it from the office staff, much less hiding it from authorities. And so soccer has really taken a shot. It's very, very popular, but the whole idea of it being the World Cup is that everybody in the world gets to see it. And now with the Olympics going down to Rio, Mark, we're there this year. We're 8 months away from the Olympics in Rio, and they have water that you're not supposed to look at the water without it making you sick. And we're going to have people swimming in it and boating in it, and somebody always, when you're on the water, you're in the water, you're going to get some of it on you, in you, around you, something. And they've got this terrible pollution where they have the several of the waterborne events. Yachting. Who the hell thought yachting would be an Olympic event? But it is. And I think several of the things may be affected by this. They are actually contemplating, Mark, if nothing else, moving some of the events to Southern California.
From Rio?
Get a map. Yeah, get a map. It's not like they're just across the bay from each other. Rio's over here. Let me see where my fingers are. Rio's over here, and Southern, or like this, one or the other. But both of them are not, and there's stuff in between, like America and Central America and all that. It just doesn't. You would think maybe Florida, Brazil to Florida. Okay, that's still a hell of a stretch. How about Cuba's in the middle there? We're friends with Cuba now. Let them have us. But I don't know what they're going to do. But I think that's going to be a story that is not going to go away on its own. Speaking of things that are never going to go away, man, the bad taste in everybody's mouth that paid all that $100 to watch Pacquiao and Mayweather. That farce. And I don't. You've got to. You got to back me up here, man. I said from the moment they announced that fight, it's going to be a crappy fight. And one of the things. Well, Manny Pacquiao was hurt. Everybody's hurt. Everybody. All the events we just talked about, the Pro Bowl riders, the PRCA, the football teams. Everybody's hurt towards the end. And Manny Pacquiao had a hurt shoulder. Okay, that's certainly not the worst injury anybody's ever entered the ring with. And it wasn't. It was just about Floyd not letting him hit him, and people thought it was going to be a fight.
Yeah, no,
and it was boxing, and there's a difference. It was not a game. It was a terribly boring fight, boxing wise. Floyd Mayweather put on the show that Floyd Mayweather does. He is a supreme boxer and a tremendous defensive boxer. When you don't get hit, it's very hard to lose when you don't get hit. And that's, I don't think boxing is going to recover anytime soon. Their kind of bread and butter was the pay-per-view stuff. And when you screwed everybody worldwide, $100 at a pop for this farce of an event. And now Manny Pacquiao is going to fight Timothy Bradley. Supposedly it's his last fight. Floyd Mayweather swears that he's, but when you throw 10 grand away in dollar bills at a strip club on a regular basis, you're bound to run out of money sooner or later. But I hope they say Manny Pacquiao, supposedly he's coming up to his last fight. It'll be the third of the Timothy Bradley trilogy. The first one he won, and the only people that thought he didn't win it were the three judges. The second fight, he defeated Timothy Bradley, and I don't see Bradley's gotten that much better now that he'll be able to do anything more with Manny Pacquiao, and Pacquiao certainly hasn't gotten a lot worse. His game doesn't suffer like the speed guys do, and he is fast. But Manny Pacquiao is a fighter, and he is a world-class boxer. But his deal is fighting, not boxing. So I think that's the deal. We talked about concussions a little bit, Mark, and Dr. Sicking and several other groups are working just as hard and quickly as they can to eliminate what they can of concussions. And now we're finding out it's like when everybody painted their houses and you had lead-based paint. You didn't realize till 20 years later it's making your kids stupid. And so they now they've eliminated that. Well, I think now they're seeing the damage that they made the helmets stronger, and guys started using them for weapons. And I was in high school. Coach, put your head in there. Get a helmet on this guy. Well, now they figured out, that mushes your brain. So, but people, this movie is going to spur some at least thought. I don't know if it'll spur action, but it spurred thought, and I don't think they're doing everything that they can. I think they should be doing damn near everything that they can. We had a meeting here, Mark, and the folks from UFC and the folks from the Nevada State Athletic Commission, they're representing boxing, and some of the judges and the referees were in attendance to see what they can do to make those combat sports safer from concussions. And it's I don't think the same appeal is there from football, and it's unfortunate. I don't see that same desire to just make sure their sport is safe is obvious. And
Okay.
In talking to some of the people working on this thing, they don't think so either.
Okay, here's one of my notes I made on this, because what are the top stories? One of them that I was trying to write out, but it wasn't making sense, and maybe now if I speak it out, it'll make sense. This year, we're seeing more of a groundswell outside of the professional sports. Okay, we're seeing like college players demanding to be recognized by the NCAA as maybe employees or subcontractors or just people.
Right.
Okay.
And that started at Northwestern, at least. They tried to unionize, and they got shot down in the last 6 weeks. I think it was, Mark, that they cannot do that.
But it's starting that conversation, and with the helmets and with the safety aspects, it's the boxing, it's the MMA people, it is the high school coaches associations going, we want to save our sport, we want to make it safer. Where you have the professional guys going, it's not a problem, And I think 2015 we saw that grassroots, if you want to call it that, starting to be recognized that that's where the change is going to come from. In basically all of sports, it's going to be that smaller voice is being heard louder now.
Yeah. And I think you're right there, Mark, and I think unfortunately, it'll be overwhelmed by some other voices, and it will fade into the background. And it's not going to fade totally away, but I don't think it's near the priority that it should be with them. I mean, and you're talking about from the very bottom up. The equipment doesn't differ from Pee-wee football to the pros. There's only two manufacturers of helmets, Schutt and Rydell. And so you're going to be your head's going to be in one or the other. The shoulder pads aren't made, by a whole bunch of different manufacturers, and they're the same thing whether they're high school pads or pro pads or whatever. They all do the same thing. So that equipment is on these kids from the time they start into football, and it's not effective. It doesn't do what it's supposed to do because they've misused the equipment that they have, not for safety, but for doing damage. So they've taken something that was good and made something bad out of it. How do they put the lid back on that box? I don't know. I think honest to God, they've outlawed headers in soccer. How hard do you have to hit with your frickin' head to give yourself a concussion from a soccer ball? And yet they've outlawed the entire action of using your head, which is a big part of soccer. You can't use your damn hands. Well, I got my feet, my head, or if I'm lucky, my penis, and you're pretty much out of stuff you can hit with. And so I just don't. I don't see this as being helpful to sports because, Mark, when I was little, I was a big kid, and they had weigh-ins, whatever, for Bantam League football, and they moved me up a division, and I wasn't the only guy like that. There were 8 or 10 of us that were in 3rd and 4th grade that had to play in the 5th and 6th grade teams. Well, those kids were bigger. There's a difference between a 5th grader and a 3rd grader, or 6th and 4th or whatever it is. It's a substantial difference, and I was still learning. The ropes, the ins and outs, and I kind of had my head in my ass. I was just a big goofy kid. And we played down at the junior college in my hometown, and I was standing on the sidelines and the teams were playing, and I hear this familiar voice hollering behind, "Put Rosen in! Put Rosen in!" And I'm like, "Oh crap, Mom!" you know, you're just like, and the coach looks over and he's like, "Who's Rosen?" And he sees me. He says, "Oh yeah, the chubby kid. Come here." He says, "Get in there, get in there, left tackle." Okay, so I go in at left tackle, and this kid, my dad played in a dance band, and this young man's dad played in the same band. And he was kind of the leader of the deal. He eventually made All-State playing football, and he flattened me. He just literally ran over me, dude. I mean, I still have tire tracks from him going right over the top of me. Just slammed me and got up, went back to the huddle, and I was still trying to figure out what day it was. And we called another play, and he did the same thing, man. He just steamrolled me. And I hear this voice, "Take Rosen out, take Rosen out." And it was my mom. And you're thinking, that's the example is, that's what moms do. Moms are going to have a say-so in this concussion thing, Mark, that I don't think that people are paying them a great deal of mind. Moms don't want, dads are, "Oh, shake it off. That bone will grow back. You know, just push it back in there where it was." Moms are, "Oh no, not little Johnny. I don't want to see, you know, you can't do that to my baby." That's why there's so many kids play soccer, because moms didn't want them getting hurt in the first place. So convincing the moms that these kids are going to be okay playing football is a much, much tougher thing now. And rumors and all those different things, I think they're going to see the superficial parts of the movie. Oh, football, they have concussions. Football's bad. You're not playing football. You know, all right, go throw a baseball and let somebody hit you with something going 120 miles an hour. That's better. So, you know, different sports have different injuries or whatever, but the concussion issues between combat sports and football, I think are going to be a huge, huge issue as we go forward, Mark. And hopefully there'll be some big changes this year. Like I say, we know of one of the world's preeminent safety engineers, Dr. Dean Sicking at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, is working as we speak on the concussion issue, and so are we, Mark, with headgear and those types of things for different sports, including skiing. This amazing thing that's going on with heads. Hopefully, it'll make it a much safer, better thing. But you can't be perfectly safe no matter what. Justin Wilson lost his life in an IndyCar at Pocono. Simply got hit by some debris, a tire bouncing along the track, or a chunk of it, and it hit him in the helmet as he had missed the wreck. He was really just coming around and viewing what happened to the other guys and figuring out if he needed to pit or what was going to happen or whatever. And a part come bouncing and hit him in the forehead and killed him. It took him a couple of days to die, but Justin Wilson did that, and now IndyCar is tethering. Even they have these unbreakable straps to hold everything together, even during a wreck. So the wreck itself didn't hurt anybody. The wreck that happened that killed Justin Wilson wasn't his fault. One of the most popular drivers, by the way, in IndyCar, there wasn't a driver alive that had much bad to say about Justin Wilson, but he died simply because something was bouncing along. So IndyCar took the very quick step of saying, we're going to put tethers on everything that could possibly maybe fly around and hit somebody, and that's what they've done. So anyway, getting through our list, Mark, what do you think about Serena Williams and choking on the Grand Slam? I mean, she got 3 of the first 4 and was expected to, and she lost to nobody, and not a nobody, but nobody compared to Serena Williams, and to keep her from winning the Grand Slam, the calendar Grand Slam.
I think she didn't get the respect that she should have gotten because of all of the backstabbing and catfighting, and so it was almost, you know, 2 totally different sports, but kind of like Ronda Rousey's loss. You know, I mean,
yeah,
there was so much backstory going on that there's no way that she could stay that focused and perform.
Yeah, She had one bad day. It happened to be on the day of the semifinals, and she didn't make the finals of the U.S. Open. So the tournament that's probably the easiest for her to win of all four of them. I mean, the French Open is tough. That clay does not play like any other surface, whether they played indoor or on the grass at Wimbledon. That's much closer to the concrete surfaces or the artificial surfaces that they have. Everything except the clay at Roland Garros there in Paris. So now, yeah, you're right. I'm not a big Serena Williams fan or Venus, simply because they were bred. I don't like their dad. Richard Williams, had the kids and has been very, very upfront about. I guess at least you say the guy's not a freaking hypocrite, but he had those girls not because he wanted to have children and do all those other. He bred those girls. He had those girls and said the whole idea is to make them the world's greatest tennis players. And for a time, Venus was, and now Serena is, and okay, that's cool, I guess, but it just seems almost like
robots,
like genetic engineering. There's just something not kosher about it. So,
but on the flip side of that, we had talked about this earlier with like A-Rod. To be in that game at that level for this long, that's something. Okay, bred.
Oh, absolutely.
But
bred to do it and doing it.
Whatever
two different things.
But still, to play at that level. After all these years, man, that's something to be amazed at.
And when you play at that level, you're like that. You have a target on your back, much like Tom Brady and the Patriots have a target on their back. And other people have that target where people give you their best game. As I think it was Chip Kelly said, we're always Notre Dame. Meaning everybody gets up for Notre Dame, so they have that one game a year where they play Notre Dame, and that's when Air Force used to play Notre Dame on a home and home thing. And man, you knew when the Notre Dame game was. You went. It was that really special thing. It was a bowl game in the middle of the year, and Notre Dame had 11 or 12 of them every year that they had to play and take somebody's best shot. Serena, pretty much the same way. Nobody goes out there and says, well, I hope I can get by today so I have something saved in the tank for tomorrow. Nobody leaves anything in the tank against Serena Williams. So that's where we're at. Okay, I know we got to get out of here pretty quick. Yeah. Ohio State was down to their third quarterback, won the national championship. They had Braxton Miller, Cardale Jones, and Braxton Miller. And Cardale Jones is going to go to the NFL. He already said. The first one that actually got hurt, now playing wide receiver and probably going to have an NFL career, a hell of a quarterback. But they were down to their third string quarterback and won the national championship, which I think is a hell of an accomplishment. We have Ronda Rousey's KO. That's the. The UFC will be just fine, but they could have been just finer. They had this amazing thing going. Ronda was doing movies and all that. And I think if she'd lost a close decision or something like that and been this incredible fight, it would have been one thing. She just got her ass handed to her. She just literally ran into a buzzsaw on Ronda. She ate one. Holly Holm just beat the crap out of her. And so the type of loss, I think, is probably going to be much more damaging. Hopefully, Ronda will come back. I think she's good for the UFC. I hope I had a little to do with the women being in the UFC. When Reed Harris came on when we had the show at the Mandalay Bay, Mark, and I asked him about women. I thought the guy was going to have a stroke. He was apoplectic. He was going from the WEC and they had just gotten taken over by the UFC, and boy, it was forbidden to talk about women and the lightweights going up into the UFC. And when I asked him, I said, I can't imagine we're going to be able to leave them out. And that's how it came about. The other UFC big story, Conor McGregor. Jose Aldo had not lost in 10 years. And had never been taken out. He'd lost a decision before, but he got knocked out in 13 seconds, which on the rematch, you're not going to see a 13-second knockout. I don't believe McGregor's going to be able to hit him and KO him. They will have the fight that they should have had the first time. And Jose Aldo is nobody to laugh at. This is a guy who's a stud. So I'm looking forward to that rematch in 2016. LeBron James went back to Cleveland, took them to the finals. They were all beat up and didn't beat Golden State. That was another thing that I thought was big, Mark. The Women's World Cup champions, you know, if we didn't get the guys there, we at least got the women there. And I guess having a WNBA team, not a great deal of respect, but the certainly very, very good soccer as they played the game very fundamentally well. And they have their share of stars, and it's amazing that we don't compete near on the same level with our men's team as we do with our women's team. And I'm not a big fan of the Klinsmann, the coach of the men's team, who seems resigned to saying, I mean, he seems okay with saying, well, we're just not good enough. That ain't how it works. You gotta, you know, that might fly in Germany where he's from. You know, but in America, that ain't how we do sports. So I think he's done. You mentioned earlier, Mark, about the athletes taking some control with the NCAA. Missouri and Gary Pinkel, their former coach now, they forced out the president and the chancellor. They finally grouped together, and they were not going to practice. They were not going to do anything football-wise until the president and the chancellor were eliminated from the hierarchy at the University of Missouri because they had not addressed racial issues adequately. And the coach said, we are all together, and he basically put his job on the line, which he quit there shortly thereafter due to health reasons. But they forced the issue at Missouri, and I think it opened a lot of eyes, kind of like what you said, Mark. We do have some power. We bring in a whole hell of a lot of money. And what are they going to do? They're going to put the librarians and the cheerleaders out there. If we don't show up on Saturday, no, we have some say-so in this. So don't expect us to be slaves and just say, yes, massa. They're not going to do that anymore. And so I congratulate the University of Missouri and for taking a stand on something they all believed in. Maybe they're, you know, not, I don't think it's 100% in any of these issues, but they didn't do themselves any harm whatsoever in standing up for what they believed in and stand together as a team. And so once again, I think that was cool. The police blotter, Mark, my God, I was going to write that down. We could do a 2-hour show and not have gone through the police blotter in sports. And domestic violence seemed to have led the way. But there was all types of stupidity that has gone on with the sports people. But domestic violence really has been. Now I think it's this knee-jerk reaction. They've given way too much power to the potentially damaging stuff. They say if you are charged in a country where we say innocent until proven guilty, if you are charged with domestic violence, you are automatically suspended. Imagine the night before the Super Bowl, somebody says to Tom Brady, hey, listen, I think you're really cute. And, oh, you hit me. Oh, I'm going to call somebody. And Tom Brady be suspended immediately for the next game, or whomever. What you just insert whatever name you want in there. It's just primed to be abused by the people that they have said, okay, it's your call. If you say this guy slapped you and you can show a scratch on your face or a black eye or something, it doesn't matter if you got it walking into a door. If you blame it on somebody, we'll find out after the fact that you just walked into a damn door. But until then, we're going to suspend this guy. So I think they still have a lot of work to do. We talked about Sepp Blatter and the FIFA scandal. The repercussions of that are going to be pretty substantial too, Mark. And once again, man, I guess we'll end up on this. Pete Rose denied not entry into the Hall of Fame, denied even the chance to be voted on. And by being on the excluded list, and the Hall of Fame saying nobody can come in if you're on the excluded list, and baseball allows Barry Bonds to coach in Major League Baseball, and Mark McGwire coaches in Major League Baseball. They did things, they took steroids and did things that affected the outcomes of games. multiple years and years worth of baseball games were adversely affected by how somebody had to approach it. You can't pitch to Barry Bonds. He's going to hit a ball way the hell out there. You just can't. They changed fundamentally how the game was played. They're still allowed in baseball. Pete Rose, who bet on his team. He bet on his team to win. And some guy I was talking to the other night on another show I do help on said, well, yeah, but he tried to win this game because he had money on it, and he blew through the pitching staff or whatever just to try to win because he had money on it. And I said, but isn't that the manager's job to win every game? When you look at the schedule, which game do you say, well, it's okay if he loses that one because then we're set up the next day to win the next one or one. I said, it might rain the next day. I want my guy to win every freaking game. If they can go 162-0, I'm happy if I'm the fan of that team. So I think baseball has a real issue, and it's unfortunate. Pete Rose, the hits leader. And their position just doesn't seem to be consistent with some of the other things they've done, which I guess is sports, which leads us to, is 2016 going to be drastically different than 2015 was, or 2014, or is it going to be different than what 2017 is in the future, Mark? What's your crystal ball say we're looking for in 2016 here, man?
A softer, more gentler year. Can't have those headbangs. Can't tap each other. We're going to go to flag football, and we're going to lower the nets in basketball, and we're going to
tutus.
Tutus. There you go.
Can't hit the quarterback in the bottom half of his tutu.
Yes, there you go.
All right. Well, folks, we certainly hope you've had a safe New Year's Eve into New Year's. We certainly wish you very much health, happiness, and prosperity in 2016. And we hope you've enjoyed good sports, because we know we have. And Mark, Happy New Year. I hope once again that continued success with all the things that we're doing. And it's a lot of fun, buddy. So thanks, Mark.
Let's have a fun year, all right?
Let's do it. All right. For Mark Anthony, I'm Rick Rosen, and to all of you out there, Happy New Year. God bless. You've been listening to Good Sports. We'll see you again right here. Bye-bye.
Bye.